He's Randy Galloway, as I mentioned, the former Fort Worth Star-Telegram columnist. He's had his finger on the pulse in the state of Texas for, 40 years, I would imagine. Randy, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Well, 50 years.
50? Oh, okay.
Before retirement, yeah. Not to mention my age or anything, but yeah. Hey, thank you, Dan. Good to be here.
Take people back to where Baylor was 20 years ago. We know 30, 40 years ago. But did it start, where were they and how did they get to this point?
Well, Art Briles brought them to this point. Because Art Briles does what Art does. He builds football teams. He is a great football coach. But how it gets out of control is when you are so inept, so bad for so long in the sport of football, and particularly in the state of Texas, and you are a joke. And I used to write columns saying Baylor is stealing money from the Big 12 because Baylor contributes nothing and gets back a heck of a lot in football. There was no bowl games, no nothing. So when an Art Briles comes along and builds what he built as quickly as he built it, and then Baylor's beating Texas, Baylor's beating Oklahoma. People who used to laugh at Baylor, you create an anything goes mentality. And one thing about Art, you give him anything goes. And he's a friend of mine. He's probably mad at me over some columns that I wrote before retirement in the last year. But if you give Art an anything goes mentality, anything will go.
You wrote a column about a year ago that Art Briles was basically untouchable. What changed?
Evidence. And by the way, up until 11 o'clock, I was on the golf course at 11 a.m. yesterday. And up until that point, and my phone started blowing up. Even in retirement, your phone still blows up. Remember that, Dan. But I still thought Art was untouchable. I didn't care how high they stacked the evidence or how bulletproof all that evidence was against Art. I thought he was untouchable. I mean, for Texas Baptist, Art was the best thing to happen since the New Testament. I mean, Art was their God. And I did not think that the regents would have the guts to say, Art, you're fired. Now, anybody else could go. Ken Starr, fine. The AD, whatever his name is, fine. But those guys had no control over. They had no control over Ken Starr, over Art Briles. But and a lot of other people will go. Starr will be out. The AD will be out. Anybody in compliance at that school, which was just a joke, they will be out. But when you stack the evidence this high, I still thought they would cover up the Art, but they didn't.
Finish this sentence. Art Briles was fired because
he ran a corrupt program, a program that where he did not care what went on off the field. That's just Art. That goes back to, it was the same way at Stephenville High School in the 90s, where he had a dynasty at 90 miles west of Fort Worth, ranching community. And Art brought wide open football, spread offense to Texas high school football like no one had ever brought it before. 4 state championships. But even in those days, and still today, there will be high school coaches who will say steroids, illegal recruiting. How did all those good players get to a ranching town 90 miles from Fort Worth? The rumors still persist there. Whether they're true or not, some of it may be jealousy, some not. But at Baylor, I mean, the whole thing just follows Art to Baylor. Now, the great contradiction on Art is that as a human being, you got to love him. Art is honest, honorable, good guy, real good guy. But put him in charge of a football program, and the slime ball reputation, it just jumps right in there. In this case, in Baylor, I mean, read the report, and we hadn't even seen all of it.
Oh,
yet.
yeah.
That's slime ball stuff right there.
Should the NCAA get involved?
Boy, that's a question I was asking a coach last night who happened to call me, and we were just talking about this, and he didn't know the answer. He didn't know the answer on that. Is this lack of institutional control? Obviously, it is, but does that apply to the NCAA? I wish I could. I wish I could give an answer on that, but I don't know. I would like to know. And also, the other thing comes up. The Baylor had a great recruiting class. This 2016 recruiting class getting ready to be freshmen in about 3 months. What happens with those players? Are they going to be free now to go where they want to go? And by the way, I talked to another coach who said his recruiting coordinator, this is a head coach, he said, I cannot even get my recruiting coordinator on the phone. His phone has blown up. And I said, what do you think? He said, I'm trying to find out why. But is that about Baylor recruits now being turned loose, the 2016 class? I guess all that remains to be seen.
He's Randy Galloway, former Fort Worth Star-Telegram columnist, radio host, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. You were around for SMU when they got the death penalty, Randy. It may be apples and oranges, but we're talking about lack of institutional control. Has that definition changed over the decades?
Wow. We're seeing Baylor. Let's go to now. See the SMU-TCU scandals, and TCU was involved in that too. All Southwest Conference schools. SMU took the hit, but I mean, all they were doing, was just exchanging money, and the players were getting most of the money. I mean, it was there were slush funds and bag men and illegal payoffs. But my gosh, that was just those were just banking type deals right there. I mean, this thing with Baylor goes way beyond that. You have to go back to Waco. Nobody wants to go back to Waco, but you have to, and look at what happened 13 years ago with the basketball murder and the cover up and everything that happened there. Now, the NCAA did come down hard on Baylor basketball over that, because many violations were in the course of investigating murder of all things. Many violations were uncovered. Now, does the NCAA come in this and try to find actual football violations? But I mean, there's a question there. What happens here? The cover up of sexual assault, repeated sexual assault, and repeated cover up. Does that does that apply here? And that's boy, I tell you what, that might be dicey right there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well,
and I did notice, you saw it too, Dan, Baylor has turned itself in to the NCAA as of yesterday, saying, please look into a few things.
Yeah, I think you got to start with criminal investigation here, because this is where the police, and I don't know about the local police. Did they turn a blind eye to this? How involved were they with this? We've seen that when you have a successful football program and the police, they'll help when need be. So I'd start there, and then it may be a separate case for the NCAA. But these are criminal charges, I would think, that I would start with.
Well, absolutely. I mean, absolutely, you go criminal, and then and by the way, that probably should apply once again to Art Browse. But I mean, all of Art's defenders, and oh my, I was still hearing from them, emails and such. But man, they've gone totally silent, and they would get rough in defending Art. But I mean, there's a mentality. It's Baylor, and I mean this is fundamental Baptist. It's not progressive Baptist. Maybe a little bit has changed. I mean, 25 years ago, that school was being run by snake handlers. Almost, but pretty close. It's more progressive now, but I mean, that's Waco is their own little. That's their kingdom down there, and it's kind of the way they operate. And I don't know whether to give full credit to this Board of Regents for just coming out and going, boom, here it is, Art, you're fired, or just to say that they hid it for too long. They knew it was going on. They waited too long. And then the evidence was stacked so high, it may kill them, but they had to fire Art. I don't know which way to go on that, Dan.
Keep your phone on for me, Randy, even in retirement, all right?
I will do that. Enjoyed it, man.
Thank you, Randy. That's Randy Galloway, former Fort Worth Star-Telegram columnist and radio host as well.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.